So yes, tonight 2 videos. This one I'm gonna try to have like half and half, half talking more about social responsibility and how people either take responsibility for their actions or they convince themselves that they are not responsible for their actions, and what this has strong implications for us in our society, and also about how people conform and why this is very dangerous. When it comes to social responsibility, I think most people don't want to feel that they're responsible for any of their actions. They might say that, I have the free will to do this and that, but overall, I think they want to function within some sort of structure, within order, to have government. I think people want this security more than they want any sort of crazy freedom, like absolute freedom. I don't think most people want this. Maybe a small minority, and for that minority, I don't really understand that, and I don't I don't agree that we should have that freedom. I think that freedom is not worth all the costs that come with it. So people do conform to their social norms to feel safe. Society can't really function unless you have laws set in place, certain behaviors that everyone understands, a language, which is, I think, a norm that everyone shares. We have our traditions, our different ways of life, and they all sort of have this similar structure. We're used to living. I live in a house. Here's my dad, my sister, my mom, or I have my wife and kids, or whatever. We're not really used to people, say, living in caves. That's the best thing I can do. Or like, we kind of view other things as strange, like nudists or something. We're like, oh, that's kind of weird, even though there's a nude beach here, and it's not as weird in my city. It's still kind of weird to if you just saw someone on the street walking naked, you'd be like, that shouldn't be allowed. And that's because our social norms have dictated what is normal and what is not. And the problem comes when you aren't able to judge a social norm in an objective way, and you take it as reality. So today in class I saw videos for all of those studies we were talking about and what I read, and there's the line test where I could make a piece of paper with lines, but basically you have someone comes into a class and everyone else knows about the study except for one person. And so the researcher asks everyone, oh, which line is this the same as? Let's just say it's like 1, right? Obviously, right? Okay. It should be. And he goes around the room. And now, at first, people gave the right answers, and the subject that was not in on it was also like, oh, okay, this makes sense. After a while, everyone said that, like, they changed the lines around, but everyone said that, like, line 1, it's not line 1, now it's line, like, 3. And it went around the room, then it got back to the subject. Everyone else was like, this is line 3. Subject would either be still like, what the fuck, and say their own, but most of the time, especially if it was repeated, they'd eventually give in to the group. And while this may not seem like super dangerous, it seems to be that it's more important for us to come to a consensus about something than for the prevailing, I don't know, rightness of it to come forward, or which is really scary when it comes to people higher up making decisions for us that's going to impact, the whole world. Also, in 3 of my classes, we're talking about implications of people not feeling responsible for their actions, or trying to direct that responsibility onto another person. So in psychology, this was shown when people shocked each other, or shocked another person, didn't actually shock them, they thought they were, when they asked the authority figure, like, who's responsible for this experiment? And the researcher would be like, I am responsible. The person would keep shocking because they don't feel like it's really their fault. Whereas before that, it would seem that the turmoil comes with knowing that it's your fault, you are hurting this other person. But if you can convince yourself that no, this is the researcher planned this is just, you're just carrying out what the researcher wants you. So when those thoughts enter our heads, then we completely remove ourselves from the equation, even though we're the ones participating in it. And I think this is why, this is why the Holocaust happens. This is why people commit terrorist acts, because they even terrorist acts, I think it's sort of like, I'm doing this, even if it's for God or something, then God is responsible now. God is telling me I must, whatever. And I think the study also showed that I think at least 80% went halfway, and 2/3 went all the way, for the initial study, like 450 millivolts. So that's a lot of shocking people. Quite a shocking study. Haha. Okay, very bad joke. So I think we all have that capacity to do these things, which are so horrible in nature, and yet when we feel that it's not our fault, we can do them anyway. And this happens also, in our culture now. I can go to drugstore, get something made in a sweatshop, but I didn't make society this way. I have nothing to do with this. I need this. I need, like, it's a product, even like a lipstick. Let's say lipstick. This has been tested on animals. I didn't test this on animals. Whatever. And then it comes down to who is responsible for everything. And in one of my other English classes, we're reading Mother Night, and everyone in it seems to have this double personality where they commit terrible atrocities. Like, there's one character that's a Hungarian Jew, and then he joins the Hungarian SS, and he's so... I think I've talked about this before. I have to someone else. Yeah, okay. I'm so forgetful of what I talk about. He kills so many people, and he's just so vicious, and he's just like an SS member. But I think there's also that, well, I'm just doing this to survive, or I'm just following orders. And even though those at the very top can say that, and I'm thinking about how that applies to, people in Wall Street, how they can just say, oh, well, this is the way society works, that's how capitalism is, and we're all playing the capitalist game. So, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just a victim to the game. And the question was in the class, like, where do you draw the line? Where do we discover who is really responsible? Because I think they are very responsible. I think, Hitler's responsible for what happened. You can try to examine his childhood, and it's like whatever, but people on the top that were commanding, they can't just say they were victims. But why can we say we are victims when we are also responsible?